Good afternoon, everyone. We are ready to begin the final plenary session for this year's HBCU-UP PI meeting. I know you may still be eating, but we'll ask that you give your attention now as we kick off this last session. Well, that's not true, as we kick off this next to the last session, and we'll talk more about that later. Meetings like this really are a place for many things. Hopefully you have had the opportunity to both share and learn, to reflect and to connect. As I thought about how all of us are connected to this work in some way and reflected on the connections that the HBCU-UP team shared in that first day of the meeting to HBCUs and the HBCU community, I thought about my colleague who shared that he and his wife met at Jackson State. And I said, oh yeah, that's right. My husband and I met in a soil mechanics lab at Howard University. There are all kinds of connections to this work. And then I thought about the fact that my oldest son was almost born in a classroom at Howard when I returned to the faculty, and let's just say worked right up until the end, and only hours separated my last class and his arrival into the world. So there are levels of commitment that we all bring to this work, and it is not unrecognized in the HBCU community, but there is great potential to have it recognized far more broadly than it is now. And so as you consider your connections and your dedication to this work and the over 350 active HBCU-UP awards that are current as I speak, how much more impact could we have if we could consider what our individual and collective voices add to the national narrative on HBCUs? How much more opportunity could be realized if we could curate and transfer knowledge in ways that could advance HBCUs at even broader scale? So I am pleased to welcome today Dr. Kelly Mack to talk with us more about just that. Dr. Mack is Vice President for Undergraduate STEM Education and Director of Project Kaleidoscope at the Association of American Colleges and Universities, and we are honored to have her here with us this afternoon. So Dr. Mack, over to you.
Thank you so much, Tori. I give talks all the time, but when it's your family, it's different, right? It's a little nervous. You want to make everybody proud. So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you again, Tori, for the gracious introduction. Thank you to our meeting organizers, and of course, thank you to all of you for all that you do and all that you are in the world. I am just grateful to be here today for so many reasons, and honored to have this platform to speak to you. As has been noted, I'm Kelly Mack, and for the past 11 and a half years, I've had the privilege of working at the American Association of Colleges and Universities in Washington, D.C. And the sole focus of my work at AAC&U is STEM faculty development, whether it's professional, leadership, personal, and what I now think I understand to be social, emotional development. What I do every day, all day, is find ways to make life better for those like us who make it happen every day for our Black and brown students. Like others who have graced this podium since yesterday, I feel I too must tell you that I am a two-time HBCU alumnus, having graduated from the University of Maryland Eastern Shore and Howard University. My mother, thank you, my mother, who is the first Mack in the family to have ever earned a college degree, is now one of the oldest living alumni of Morgan State University. And everybody else in my family, except one who just couldn't get his application in on time, has also graduated from an HBCU. So I too am legit in this space. Just wanted you to know that. Before I begin, I want to take a moment to congratulate our beloved HBCU-UP program and all who contribute or have contributed as stewards of this program, both within and outside of NSF. And I want to make a fervent wish upon the universe today for 25 times 25 more years. It is my wish that our academic great-grandchildren and their great-grandchildren will know and have benefit of this community, this resource, this beacon in higher education for all things historical and STEM and Black and college and university. In the few moments that I have at the mic today, I've been asked to talk about knowledge transfer and the importance of having a voice. In case you haven't noticed, it's been a constant theme since this meeting opened yesterday. It's my hope that by the end of my remarks, I will have convinced you that we are being called into a critical moment with this program and into a movement. So my context is knowledge transfer, but my subtext is, say it loud, we are historically Black and we are proud. Let me repeat that. My subtext is, say it loud, we are historically Black and we are proud. You might recognize the phrase. I see a lot of heads nodding and a lot of smiles in the face. It's borrowed from the title of the famous R&B song of the late 1960s by the legendary James Brown. It was written to remind Black people of how beautiful they are. I use it here today to remind us of how beautiful we are and how important our beauty is to higher education. So I want to start, if I may, with the actual term knowledge transfer. Because this thing that we are being called into is so complex that if we don't know and touch and agree today on what it actually is, we can never hope to accomplish it. At the surface, it seems a simple term. It's about making sure that what one group knows, that their knowledge finds its way to another group. Simple enough, right? But there's so much more. Moving knowledge or information from one group to another is one thing, but that alone doesn't include knowing how one group came to know what they know, or how a group transfers how they came to know what they know to another group. And it doesn't come close to helping us understand how one group moves knowledge to another group when the other group doesn't even care to know what the group knows. So stay with me, let me give you an example. In the late 1800s, about 30 years after slavery, Ida B. Wells and her mentee, Frederick Douglass, I want to pause there and I want to say that again because it's Women's History Month. Ida B. Wells and her mentee, Frederick Douglass, wanted to present at the World's Columbian Exposition. This international convening is much like our own discipline-specific scientific conferences of today. It showcased the most current technological discoveries, advances, and innovations of the day. Everybody needed to be there. Wells and Douglass had knowledge to transfer just like every other exposition attendee. And there was a place to transfer their knowledge, but sadly, Blacks were not allowed to attend the exposition. So guess what? No knowledge transfer. When one group doesn't even care to know what the other group knows, no knowledge transfer. So Wells and Douglass did what any other respectable scholar would do in this situation. They wrote an article about it. They called attention to the exclusionary practices of the exposition. Today, we would say they self-published their article. And of course they did. They had no choice. They had to self-publish. Because what major research journal of the 1800s would review, accept, then publish a qualitative narrative or opinion piece from a Black scholar 30 years after slavery who was challenging the status quo or challenging the validity of the structure that offered credibility to some and invisibility to others? Perhaps this sounds familiar. Perhaps you might be expecting me to say that we should self-publish our broadening participation work. Well, we should. But while important, publishing alone is insufficient for achieving the kind of knowledge transfer where what we know reaches those who desire to know not only what we know, but also how we come to know what we know, and creates change. The more I study this thing called knowledge transfer, this movement of knowledge from one community to another, and the more I grapple with it and learn about its histories and its peculiarities and its limitations, the more I am convinced that knowledge transfer is about as complicated a problem as any that we tackle in our research laboratories, our classrooms, and even our lives. And it's complicated by at least a million different factors. I have 19 more minutes to talk to you about 2 of them: language and culture. Let's deal with language first. If I've learned nothing else during my tenure at AAC&U, it's that language matters. In my work, I have the privilege of engaging daily with humanists and social scientists and higher education theorists. It took some time, but I've matured into the kind of colleague who appreciates different uses and manipulations of language. I now appreciate the ways in which our different disciplines shape what is important and what we say and what we don't say and how we say it and when we say it. I find it absolutely fascinating, and sometimes it's even comical. But I must admit, every now and then I'm still at a loss. Some days my code switching skills can't quite switch domains fast enough for me to comprehend what I recognize to be words of the English language, for sure. I mean, I hear the words that they're saying, but they've been combined into phrases and conjunctions and sentences in such unique and different ways that I just can't figure out the meaning of the words that are coming out of my colleagues' mouths. And it's not just them. Truth be told, it's us too. We are not innocent when it comes to using some words all willy-nilly. We too can use a word and it mean totally different things on different days. We use words like significant and theory and model. And I guarantee, if I asked us to define those words right now, there would be as many different definitions as there are disciplines represented here in this room. Same words, but they mean totally different things to the social and physical scientists or to the chemist and the biologist. So how then can we ever think just by simply moving knowledge from one group to another we have done knowledge transfer? I've concluded we cannot, unless we rest and rely on what many scholars have referred to as the third space, where the individuals of 2 different disciplines or 2 lived experiences come together to exchange their beliefs and perspectives in a shared space, while honoring both views and vantage points, diminishing neither, and creating a common understanding so that knowledge, and more importantly, the meaning of that knowledge, can be translated from one to another. Now, third space is a valid theory, but to me it's a little too abstract for such an important discussion like what we're having here today. So let me see if I can break this down and make it plain. In our marriages, we have third spaces. Or let me say this. In our marriages, we should have third spaces. Consider this, if you will. If you and I were married, you're the husband, I'm the wife, okay? Consider this. If you and I were married, I may come to the marriage with the understanding that what's mine is mine and what's yours is mine. And who knows, maybe it's how I was raised to believe that I am to be provided for. Not saying it's right or wrong, it just is. And if you are my husband, perhaps you feel that what's yours is yours and what's mine is yours as well. I may disagree with your premise. Let's assume for the sake of this conversation that I do disagree with your premise, even though I have no basis upon which to disagree with you or to declare that you are wrong and I am right. But because I am a great wife and partner, I want to honor you and your little feelings, right? And you, being the great husband and partner you want to do the same for me. So what do? Maybe we open a joint bank account and we agree that anything in that account belongs to both of us. It serves us both. It provides us both with financial security. It's our third space. Now, I've not let go of my belief, but neither have you. But together, we've created a space where we can both contribute and co-learn and unlearn and agree and disagree and grow and change. Of course, money is more complicated than a joint bank account. Money always is, but that's exactly my point. Just like money matters, so too does the way we create the space for knowledge to be transferred. We have to arrive at the space with openness and intentionality. And even then, there are no guarantees because you know I'm not going to put all of my money in that joint bank account. And perhaps neither are you. And then what does that determine about the quality of our life? Better yet, what does that determine about the quality of our broadening participation theories, interventions, intuitions, practices that result from our sharing a third space when we don't contribute freely to it? The second thing that makes knowledge transfer more of a challenge than we give it credit for has to do with the culture of the academy itself. More specifically, the culture of scholarship. The highly coveted, peer-reviewed publication in the discipline's top-tier journal, much like the mighty dollar, is something many of us have been conditioned to value. Perhaps conditioned to value it even more than the pursuit or the passion for the thing that made the publication or the dollar even possible. When we see how value of the data can exceed the value placed on the lives and lived experiences of those represented in the data, or when we see how number of publications can be valued more than the number of collaborators it took to generate those publications, this kind of culture, as author and anti-racism scholar Tema Okun so eloquently explains, is rife with ideals of perfectionism, worship of the written word, and overemphasis of the individual as opposed to the collective. I want to pause here parenthetically because that's a lot to take in. According to Okun, the ways in which our beloved academic STEM culture holds up perfectionism, or what we may call excellence, means that we have convinced ourselves that there is no time or need for reflection or identifying lessons learned from our failures or struggles. To this I say with all candor and perhaps not grammatically correct, that ain't right. This culture, as Okun describes it, that holds the written word with such high regard that it refuses to accept, reflect, or embrace wisdom, intuition, or lived experience as data or evidence. To that I say again with all candor and perhaps grammatically incorrect, that ain't right. It's no wonder then that editors of major scientific journals around the world have spoken out or stood up in resistance, resigned their positions, and even started their own journals, because that just ain't right. They all see it, and I know we see it too. So as I prepare to close, I offer the question, what then must we do? It's not enough for us to come to a meeting like this and leave without understanding what we as a community must now do to advance this knowledge transfer agenda that our program officers have subtly and not so subtly charged us with. I'll not allow us to remain agnostic or indifferent on this matter. Too much is at stake. Too little time is available. Benjamin Mays reminds us that all we have is this minute. Yes, it's forced upon us. We can't refuse it, we didn't seek it, we didn't choose it, but it's still up to us to use it, give account if we abuse it, suffer if we lose it. This tiny minute, but our eternity is in it. So how will this group of HBCU undergraduate program, principal investigators, leaders, project directors, staff scholars, researchers, and participants chart a more daring and indeed liberative path forward for our program? And do so in ways that make note of our heroic and Herculean deeds and also honor our humanity along the way. In the first edition of this speech, I wrote that I think we need a revolution of some kind, but I had to revise it last night because I think we're in the middle. I think we're in a revolution already, an intellectual revolution. Question is, do we or do we not let it pass us by? And if for a second you are thinking that we do the former, allow me to help you recall that in 1969 there was a young man, a young college student named Gil Scott Heron, who penned the song entitled "The Revolution Will Not Be Televised." And before I tell you about the song's meaning, I need to pause here for just one brief HBCU second and mention that Gil was a student of Lincoln College in Pennsylvania, arguably the nation's first HBCU, depending on who you ask. In the song, he cautions us to guard against relying on the conventions of replay and recordings as a means of engaging. If you haven't heard it, I urge you to listen to it, and if you have heard it before, I invite you to listen to it again through the maturity and wisdom of one who serves as a steward of the national investments of the HBCU-UP undergraduate program. These investments in education of Black undergraduates in the 21st century, in an America that has been less than fair in preparing them to be educated and free citizens of a world that is increasingly being defined by access to science and technology. The meaning of the song's title helps us understand that inaction is not an option for us, but please don't misunderstand me. I'm not advocating that we assimilate deeper into the very culture that fails to recognize or embrace our unique ways of seeing the world as HBCU STEM faculty. That culture has its place in our professional lives. What I am advocating for is that we find ways to resist it, that we embrace new, culturally correct ways of presenting scholarship and evidence to the undergraduate STEM reform community and to ourselves. And yes, it's easier said than done. I get it. I'm not one who can boast of hundreds of publications and books and book chapters and opinion editorials and TED Talks and YouTube videos and X threads or LinkedIn followers or Instagram posts or any of the other things. Indeed, I do not. But as sure as I'm standing here today before you, trust that I will be changing that narrative for myself, and I will be doing all in my power to assist you in changing that narrative for yourself as well. So my next few points about how we participate in this intellectual revolution in real time are as much for me as they are for you. I have 3 of them, and I'm going to go very quickly because I've already gotten the 10-minute sign. Number 1, let's be mindful about our language. Find the third space. Let's look first for the shared language that means something to everyone, then hold the shared space where we can co-learn together. Several years ago, pre-COVID, my family and I traveled to Italy. None of us spoke a word of Italian. We still don't. The stress, then, of needing to navigate the city, order food at the restaurant, interpret directions and signs, find the expensive leather stores to buy shoes, pronounce our hotel name correctly without knowing how to speak the language was more than a notion. On the last day of our trip, we found ourselves in the middle of a town square in the heart of Milan with a beautiful cathedral anchoring the whole square. And on the front of this gorgeous cathedral was a neon sign of all things. And as if it wasn't enough that a cathedral would have a neon sign, the neon sign was written in English. It was the only English I had seen since I had arrived in Italy. And it simply said this: everything will be all right. There it was, the third space between me and the Italians, a shared language among those who believe in powers and a presence in the world greater than themselves. Even now, just hearing it out loud is a soothing balm for the weariness that my soul carries. Like you, I've lost some loved ones, shed some tears, been robbed of some sleep. I do too much for people who only know how to demand more. I'm worried, I'm exhausted, unsettled, and yet I can easily be persuaded into a third space of calm and quiet that doesn't force me to forget about how I'm really doing for the sake of making good conversation with you, but allows me to bring all of that with me and for you to bring all of yours as well, and for us to still have a great time talking together. It is not impossible for us then to envision a proverbial neon sign on our institutions, our department hallways, our office doors, and dare I say, our hearts, that opens up a third space for real conversation to occur, for knowledge to be transferred. So I'm asking, who do you need to call into a third space with you? Then I'm encouraging you to call them in. Put some of your money, your knowledge, into a joint bank account of we need to do this differently, and let's watch change happen. Number 2, get in the knowledge race and stay there. Whenever I get the opportunity, I like to watch Olympic track and field races. The ones I enjoy the most are the long distance races. I don't really like the ones where they go around the track 11 times, round and round and round, same scene. That gets on my nerves. I prefer the ones where they run through the city and people are throwing cups of water at them. I find it extremely fascinating. So let me pause here and let you know, I'm not a runner. To be honest, I don't even like to walk fast. But I'm so intrigued by this race. I'm reminded when I watch it of the biblical implication of one specific verse that says to God's people, the race is not promised to the one who runs fastest or who is the strongest, but to the one who endures till the end. But stop, pause, wait a minute. There's enduring and then there's enduring. Enduring does not mean killing yourself softly, period. Enduring does not mean killing yourself softly. Now, we return back to our program already in progress. The race is won by the one who endures till the end. Rightfully, you could argue that all of the runners at the Olympics are already winners. They must be strong and swift, otherwise they wouldn't even be there. And it's the same for us. The sacrifices that we make for our students and our colleagues make us champions in every way imaginable. Champions who run the race every day, come hell or high water. Maybe not running the fastest, but running nevertheless. By any means necessary, anyway, one way or another, by hook or crook, in the race every day, running. But there's still something else that intrigues me about this race. See, when the runners are in the middle of the race, they're all huddled together, and they're running at the same speed. And there's some shoving going on and some elbows being thrown. That's all part of it. That's the part I like, right? The runners, they're just jockeying for position. They're trying to stay with the pack, not fall behind, just like us, right? They're running in the pack. Annual report due, elbow, okay? Right? It's midterm week, another shove. The baby has the flu, elbow. And they stay in that huddle for what seems like hours to me. And if one speeds up, guess what? The others speed up too. They stay together in the same chaos. And then there's this minute. It happens before you even know that it has happened. It's the minute when some runner decides it's their time. And she speeds up and breaks away enough to remain out in front for the rest of the race. What's interesting to me about this minute is that the runner has to know a few things. The runner has to know themselves and their capacity, and so do we. Because when the minute arrives, you have to be able to determine in an instant if it is indeed the right time, and you can go the distance at the faster pace. If the runner picks the wrong minute, then they'll move out in front of the pack. But it won't be far enough or fast enough to keep the other runners from catching up to them, and then they'll get sucked back into the chaos of the pack again. If they pick a minute earlier than what they have the capacity to sustain, they won't finish the race out in front. Because once they speed up and break away, they have to hold that speed till the end of the race, or they lose. But this is our minute, because Carleitta, Leroy, and Tori said so. This is the time for us to break away from the pack of old habits of not publishing what we do, not reflecting on how we do it, not valuing our way of telling the story about what we do. Let's get out in front of our narrative far enough that we can endure till the end of the race, far enough that those coming behind us will be able to sprint ahead, far enough that the question of our place in STEM higher education will no longer be questioned. It will be answered and asked no more. Now, I must be honest. Until we decide to break away from the pack, there will be some pushing and shoving and some elbows that we will have to endure, but that's okay. We can take it. To paraphrase A. Philip Randolph, if we can't take anything, we won't get anything, and we can't take anything without organization. But we have organization, so let's organize. Let's organize ourselves around HBCU and STEM Inclusionary, a knowledge management resource center, a center for the advancing of STEM leadership, and a STEM undergraduate success center, and a journal of STEM leadership and broadening participation. Here's what organization does for us. It means whatever you do, no matter how great or small, it's important. So if you can't write a whole manuscript this semester, that's okay. Call us and let us know you have a few hours to review someone else's manuscript. If you don't have time to write a tweet or post, heart somebody else's. If you are camera shy, do a podcast. If you don't have anything to say right now, think a positive thought and then write it down so we can use it in a social media post later on somewhere. It doesn't matter what we do. It matters that we do it. Number 3, last one. I already got the 1 minute mark, but if you would just bear with me for just a couple more seconds. Number 3, last one. Pay attention to who is showing up for the race. Each one of us is so precious to this community. We cannot afford to lose even one, not even one. To reverse the negative depictions, underestimations, and oversimplifications of what we do at HBCUs, it will require that we are our best selves. Though I know you are used to making it work and you do it so well, care of self does not happen while the runner is running the race. You simply cannot rest and work at the same time, nor should you. And you cannot be your best self in the race if you are not invested and investing in being your best self, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And besides us, consider that in this race that we are running, up in the stands are all of our HBCU ancestors and angels, from the bows of slave ships, from the Trail of Tears, from COVID, from micro and macroaggressions happening right on our own campuses. They've all shown up to watch us run this race. And they are screaming and shouting with all they've got. And they're jumping up and down and rocking the bleachers right now. Can you not see them in your mind's eye? Can you not feel their presence all around us? They've shown up just for us, to cheer us on, to let us know that they've got our back, that they believe in us. They know we've got this, even when we think we can't take another thing, and they want to see us win. So let's not disappoint them, each other, or ourselves. Thank you. I think I'm a little over time. I don't know if, okay. There's time for questions or comments.
Throughout the room. If you have a question for Dr. Mack, please feel free to approach one of the microphones.
There's about 7 minutes for us to do questions, either online or from the floor.
Thanks so much. I am such a Kelly Mack fan. Just let me
Thank you,
say.
Cheryl. Thank you.
I just heard the call for self-care, and there, in this time that we live in, I can identify with the likes of Ida B. Wells just in our culture, and yet our systems are just as stressed. And I'm at a loss as to how to affect change in a system that is stressed also. I'd love to, if you could just offer anything.
I wish I could, Cheryl. I am at a loss as well. What didn't make it into this speech that weighs heavily on me right now are the many articles that I'm seeing in our higher education literature that talk about the hunt for Black women in the academy in particular, and the ways in which Black women are being targeted. And I grew up understanding that Black men were targets in America and what that meant to the men in my family. But it's hit home now, right, in a different kind of way. And I will say to you that many of our younger colleagues are reaching out and asking me, what are we going to do, right? What are we going to do? And I don't have an answer to that. What I would encourage us to do is to continue to create the spaces that we need where we are able to care for one another and keep each other lifted and be honest and open, that we continue to find the ways to ensure that she's okay, that he's okay. And that looks so different for so many of us. But we have to get really specific now about what that's going to mean and what that's going to look like going forward. We aren't going to be able to undo 200, 300 years of all of this in the next 10 or 15 or in the next 25. We're going to need a lot of time, but in the meantime, we have to show up in a way that allows us to be strong for that which we have to endure, that allows us to show up in a way that keeps us from opting out, moving out, checking out, and dare I say, transitioning out. But thank you for the question. But check back with me in a couple of months. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. I also am a Kelly Mack stan, so.
Thank you, Charles.
I noticed you had hit on the idea of language and environment and how that plays into the culture, and especially the culture that is developed at HBCUs. And I'm listening to what you were saying, I've been thinking about how then do you envision or dream of the future of STEM education or the STEM field itself? How do you envision that? What does the future look like for that? After hearing this speech, it's inspiring, but I'm curious what you see and how you see it.
Yeah, man, these are some tough questions. Okay. So real talk. I remember stepping into this position, and I remember saying to my colleagues, we gotta focus on this inclusion part, right? We can't go forward with reforming STEM higher education if we are not focused on those among us who are most marginalized, right? That lifting tide lifts all boats, or however it goes, like that's not getting it. And I remember the reaction from the community was, no, we don't need to do that, right? Just listen, active learning is good for everybody. You put some active learning exercises in, that's what we need to focus on, Kelly, because we always focused on the next best thing. I thought, oh, okay, so our black and brown kids, they aren't even the next best thing. And so you fast forward a decade later, and we're at this point where it's just in our face. But it took all of that. It's taken all of the past 10 years for it to be in our face in STEM higher education. And I don't know that I want to move from this point, because we still haven't grappled with all that we need to grapple with in order for us to envision a different kind of STEM higher education. And so I could think of a world, of course, where everybody feels like they belong and where everybody is included. And I can imagine a world where there are different perspectives and voices, and we can disagree. And we can agree to disagree and still be committed in working toward a common goal. But I can't imagine that in the chaos and confusion that I work in today. So it's almost what I tell a lot of leaders in our institutes: we may never see what this becomes. That I'm at a point in my career, you're younger than I am, I'm at a point in my career where I have to accept the realization that my reason for being here, my purpose for being here right now may not have been to see that. It might be for me to just fix what I see right now so that those who are supposed to be in that space then don't have to worry about or revisit what we didn't take care of right now. So the world that I envision right now is very realistic. It's not pessimistic. I'm very much encouraged. Otherwise, I could not get out of the bed every day. But the world that I envision now is the one where we are making significant strides with the issues that are on the table. right now in a very, very direct and meaningful way. That we're not going to gloss over this. I'm not going to let my community gloss over this in any way. And by my community, I mean the national STEM higher education community that I lead, both within HBCUs and outside of HBCUs at the same time. I hope that's helpful.
That is, thank you.
I mean, I'm saying, right, they done.
We want to hear more. Well, please join me in thanking Dr. Mack. Wow, so much to think about. We are now motivated to find the third space, to get in the knowledge race and stay there, and to pay attention to who is showing up for the race as we enter into reflection of all that we've heard and learned and shared and experienced over these past 2 days. Those are great marching orders moving forward, and hopefully you can tie them into your reflection and how you can integrate that into the important work that each of you do. Well, it is time now to transition to what is actually the last session. That was our last plenary. This would be our actual last session of the meeting, and those are the rapid sessions. But before that, we want to thank Dr. Mack again for the inspiring and motivating words. We also want to thank AAAS for your role in coordinating and organizing the meeting. And I'm going to ask all of you to join me in thanking the program lead for the Historically Black Colleges and Universities undergraduate program, Dr. Carleitta Paige-Anderson. And I know she would say that this is a team-led effort, so join me in thanking the entire HBCU-UP team. So let me just say that over the past 2 days, you have had an opportunity to engage in many, many breakout sessions. And we know that there were oftentimes competing priorities, so you had to decide between one or the other, and some rooms may have been oversubscribed, and some rooms may have been undersubscribed because you just couldn't be in more than one place at once. But these rapid sessions will provide you with the opportunity to engage with what I understand are over 40 different representatives from NSF programs, from programs outside of the National Science Foundation, so other federal agencies are represented here. There are a variety of individuals that will be represented at the tables, and so we invite those of you who signed up for a particular time, of course, to engage, and for those of you who did not sign up for a particular time, there is still an opportunity to visit the tables and engage in conversations organically around topics that might be of mutual interest. So please avail yourselves to the rapid sessions, which I am assuming Iris is here to tell us more about. Okay, all right. So I think I have said everything that I am supposed to say. I'm reviewing my notes to make sure. Did I leave anything off? Wonderful. Well, with that, I will hand the microphone over to Iris with one last huge thank you to all of you for how you've engaged, how you've been present, how you have shared, and for the great work that you're returning to do. Thank you all.
Thanks, Tori. Thanks again, Dr. Mack, for that amazing presentation. We do have a few other things before we transition. We would like you to just take about 10 minutes now to complete the survey and just let us know how you feel about these sessions, the overall meeting. You can find a survey via the Guidebook app. We want to allow this opportunity during this session because we know people are leaving. We know some of you may not be going to the rapid meetings. So if you have an early flight, if you are not going to the rapid meetings, we want to take the next 10 minutes to complete the survey. And then for those of you who are attending the rapid meetings, they are located in Independence Ballroom. That is on level M4. We are on M2, so you go down 2 levels to M4 to get to Independence Ballroom. So for those of you who are attending the rapid meetings, please, please, please complete the survey before you leave that session. For everyone else, we want to allow at least 10 minutes now, and then we do have some other things to share with you after that 10 minutes for this program. But we want to give you a chance to complete the survey, and we will transition on time at 2. Okay, I hope that was enough time to complete the survey and that nobody had any troubles. We will launch them on multiple platforms and outlets, so we will follow up via email as well after the meeting. So I just want to make a few announcements before I officially close out. We will be collecting all of the presentations so that we can share them with you all. I think we have 1 month post-conference with the Guidebook app that you can still access those things, but we will be sending out a Dropbox link for you to just upload. We know things change. You forgot something, you may want to add it. So you want to give you a time to just upload all of your slides, your presentations, anything that you want to share with all of the registrants. We will be sure to compile and disseminate all of that for you. So I just want to make some announcements and acknowledgments before we officially close out. I definitely want to thank the entire HBCU-UP team who really put together an awesome program. We enjoyed working with them. A lot of moving parts. We started about 14 months out. To plan this meeting. So I just want to thank the entire HBCU-UP team. I hope we didn't forget anybody, but really thank all of them for all of their hard work. So if everybody could just give the HBCU-UP team another round of applause. And I have to thank my very small, my small team, Neela White, Clara Malloy, Allison Gonzalez, Janice Lim, Erica Wood, Drew Scammell, Janaea Thompson, and Elise Menendez, who are our finance folks behind the scenes that aren't here. But I just really want to take time out to really acknowledge my very small team. So if anybody's still in the room or not running around, if you could just stand up so we can give you a hand of applause for like all of your hard work for my team. Please stand up wherever you are. And I always like to acknowledge our, entire, if I can get everybody's name, hotel staff. So we have about 20 different POCs and key departments that we work with. So I really just want to acknowledge the entire Marriott Marquis staff, from banquet to security to rooms to AV to tech. If we could just take a moment and just give them a round of applause for working with them. And just 2 opportunities I want to share with you all since we have you all in the room. We have launched our our call for applications for our 2024 HBCU-UP Making It Innovation Showcase, which is another opportunity that is funded by the HBCU-UP program. It is in AAAS's only HBCU Innovation Initiative. So the deadline is March 29th, and just based on some of the amazing presentations we heard at the virtual poster session last week, you all are already doing work that really align with the frameworks that are based on the UN Sustainable Development Goals, really trying to help these emerging researchers leverage the STEM expertise that they are developing to address global issues, local issues that they care about in their community. So we saw a number of projects that are already ready to apply for this. So we want to share that opportunity with you. If anybody's interested, teams are made up of anywhere from 3 to 5 students plus a faculty advisor. So that is the opportunity that we wanted to share with you. Another one is the call for our 2025 AAAS annual meeting is out. Again, we saw some excellent work that you all are doing that you shared last week at the virtual poster session, and we really think this work should be really lifted and shared in a broader community through our 200,000 AAAS members. We have about 5,000 at the annual meeting in Boston, and we think that we just really want to help lift this work. You all are doing amazing work. So again, I want to thank you all for joining us. In the beginning, I said that our intent was that you find value in this meeting, that you make meaningful connections, and that you walk away with resources to assist you in leading your programs. And we hope that we delivered on that. Thank you all again. Safe travels.
I'm hoping to get more networking done, make good connections, learn about sustainability, learn about new grant opportunities for our faculty and for our students. I am going to look at outsourcing some of our resources to make better collaborations with other campuses and to pursue other grant opportunities with the National Institutes of Health as well as with the National Science Foundation. I believe we will be able to foresee what we are able to do in the future as far as sustainability with our campuses and our programs that we've had in existence for several years. I would encourage others to pursue grant opportunities and also look at grant opportunities outside of just the ones that we are here for at this particular conference, but there are other opportunities with the National Science Foundation, and I would encourage everyone to think outside of the box and the networking. It's amazing the networking that can take place at these conferences in the short amount of time and the collaborations that can develop from them, because that is what helps in that sustainability. I came here to connect with other colleagues who also have RIA awards, and also to gain resources and information about the next steps for my project. It will help me identify collaborators for those next steps and funding opportunities to support those next steps. In order to encourage other faculty to join me here at this meeting next year, I would tell them about the connections I made, about potential collaborators, about funding opportunities, and the fact that here you're the first to know. So the fact that you're the first to know about these opportunities and you get to speak with people who are directly involved with these funding opportunities. So that's my favorite part about this NSF experience here. The fact that I actually get to speak with them, understand a little bit better what they're looking for when they read a proposal, and I understand a little bit more about what help is available in order to write their proposal. So this is a good meeting before you write the proposal, while you're writing the proposal, while you have the grant, and what to do in order to get the next grant. The one word I'd use to describe this meeting for me is resourceful.